What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports back again with another one. Russia's naked aggression against Ukraine could have a domino effect on the WBA light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol and his upcoming defense against undisputed super middleweight champion Saul Canelo Alvarez. Let me set the stage for you. Today, all four sanctioning bodies, which include the WBA, WBC, WBO, and IBF, have banned all boxing events from the country of Russia. The WBA president, Gilberto J. Mendoza, has convened a meeting next Monday with the board of directors, and they will consider taking additional steps. One of those steps include suspending all Russian fighters from their rankings. Another step includes suspending all regional and world champions. And if that's the case, that means that Dmitry Bivol ain't going to be defending his WBA light heavyweight title when he takes on Saul Canelo Alvarez May 7th in Las Vegas, Nevada, a.k.a. Sin City. The leading venue to host that fight, from what I'm hearing, is T-Mobile. That fight will be promoted by Matchroom Boxing, led by Eddie Hearn, the Puff Daddy of boxing promoters, always in the video. Now they have a press conference set up this Wednesday to officially announce that fight. I know the reporters that will be at that fight are going to have to ask some serious questions to Eddie Hearn and Canelo Alvarez. That if the WBA decides to suspend Dmitry Bivol as its champion, will they still push forward fighting a non-title fight against a guy that's really, without their belt, brings nothing to the table? Because as we know, Canelo Alvarez took a less lucrative offer with the Zone than he could have took with the PBC. And one of the things that he was saying, him and his people and his team was saying, that they're chasing legacy. It's not about the money, it's about legacy. Well, there ain't gonna be no legacy on the line if it ain't no WBA light heavyweight title on the line. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But this Russia-Ukraine situation is a situation that is touching everybody. It's touching everybody. It's bringing in people from all walks of life. And right now it's touching the sports field. As I believe I heard something with FIFA, they're taking steps against Russia. You know, I heard that the World Cup is either taking steps against Russia or strongly considering taking steps against Russia. They're thinking about in the future, in the World Cup. They haven't made nothing official about maybe banning Russia from the World Cup, but they're basically got the wheels turning at the World Cup about what's going on with Russia and its invasion of a sovereign state, Ukraine. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But there's some interesting information coming out in regards to the sanctioning bodies, as I give them all the credit in the world. So I salute the WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO for all standing 10 toes down and standing on their square. Because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You know, the WBA, if they do decide to not recognize Dmitry Bivol as their champion, could stand to lose a lot of money on that fight. You know, they pay and they dish out. I ain't gonna say they pay, the fighters pay, but they charge sanctioning fees to Dmitry Bivol. And him putting his title on the line in a high-profile fight with Canelo Alvarez, which is, I'm about to say, arguably the biggest fight of 2022. If it's not the biggest fight of 2022, it's one of the biggest fights in 2022. And it's definitely involving the biggest name in the sport of boxing, that being Saul Canelo Alvarez. And it will take huge cojones for the WBA to strip Dmitry Bivol before that mega matchup with the biggest star in boxing. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But the WBC, the WBO, and IBF are going to co-sign anything the WBA does. So if the WBA decides to suspend fighters from their rankings, I guarantee you that the WBC, WBA, and IBF will follow suit. So this is a situation where you got the United States of America and its NATO allies have already brought sanctions against the country of Russia. They've sanctioned 80% of the Russian banks, but that leaves 20% for Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, to still maneuver and make money to support his military in their invasion of a sovereign state of Ukraine. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But interesting news, man, in the sport of boxing, man. We'll see how it all plays out, man. But there's a lot of things that are in play there. So it's nothing that we can say is in concrete as far as Dmitry Bivol taking on Canelo Alvarez. Now, the fight has been finalized, but I would think, I don't know, maybe. I would think that there's some kind of wording in the contract that if it's not a title at stake, that Canelo Alvarez could get out of that fight. And for all we know, we don't even know if Canelo Alvarez has actually signed his name on the dotted line. I think he's no doubt that he has agreed to the terms of the contract. Ain't no doubt about that. It's no doubt that Dmitry Bivol has agreed to the terms of the contract, but has both fighters signed their name to the contract. Because I know Kenny Porter, who's the manager and trainer, who was the manager and trainer of now retired fighter Sean Porter, he came out and said that, the fighters verbally agree to the contract, but they actually don't sign till the week of the fight. And if that's the case, then Canelo Alvarez, he can easily walk away from this non-title fight versus Dmitry Bivol if the WBA decides to suspend regional and world champions. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Let me know your thoughts and what you think will happen. Do you think the WBA will actually suspend world champions and regional champions in their rankings? Therefore, basically, they ain't gonna, I'm not gonna say they stripping Dmitry Bivol of his belt, but his belt is gonna basically be non-existent. It's gonna be non-existent, especially if you're talking about his fight with Canelo Alvarez. Because if the title is not on the line, then what's the point of Canelo Alvarez actually fighting Dmitry Bivol? Because outside of that belt, he brings nothing to the table. Again, he's a guy that doesn't speak any English. He doesn't have any charisma. He's basically a mime as far as the man don't talk, man. The man is just all about getting in the ring, doing his job, getting out the ring, and going home to his family, man. He's not a self-promoter. That's for damn sure. So outside of the WBA belt, he doesn't bring anything to the table. So will Canelo Alvarez, if the WBA decides to suspend him as their champion, will he decide to go into another direction? We will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Now, as we know, the Triple G fight cannot happen in May because he has a fight set up with Murata in April. So the earliest that fight can happen is in September. You got guys like John Ryder is out there. Maybe he could fight a John Ryder. John Ryder is ranked at super middleweight, so that could be a fight that Canelo Alvarez could take at 168. But that fight, to me, should be in the UK if he's going to fight John Ryder, because John Ryder brings nothing to the table over here in the US. He's actually worse than Dmitry Bivol, because at least Bivol got a belt. John Ryder don't have a belt. He's coming off his career best win against the Miracle Man, Danny Jacobs, in a fight that many people thought he lost. It was a very close fight. I thought Jacobs edged it out, but it wasn't no robbery. It wasn't no robbery. Just like these people saying that Jack Cottrell got robbed. Nah. I had him winning the fight by 1 point. I had to fight 113-112 with Jack Catterall. When it's that close, it's not a robbery. Maybe the problem with Jack Cottrell was he was letting Josh Taylor walk him down in that fight. He was steady fighting, backing up, fighting off the back foot. You know, Josh Taylor was the aggressor. And sometimes when you're the aggressor, you get the benefit of the doubt. Especially if you got a judge that like aggressive fighters. You got some guys that judge fight, they like the boxers. They like the skillful boxer. They like the guy that's got a good jab, know how to control distance, good defensively, ring generalship type of fighter. You got other judges that like aggressive fighters. They give them the benefit of the doubt. Even if they're not landing shots, if they're constantly bringing the pressure, trying to make the fight, they get a round, especially if it's a close round. They'll get the benefit of the doubt of a close competitive round. They'll get the nod more times than not in a close competitive round. That's neither here nor there. We'll see what the WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO ultimately decides, but everything is still on the table. So the Canelo-Alvarez versus Dmitry Bivol is not a done deal. The fight has an obstacle that it must clear, and that is the situation involving Russia and Ukraine and the possible decision by the WBA to suspend the world and regional champions and suspend fighters from their rankings. And when we talk about Dmitry Bivol, obviously if they suspend world champions along with the regional champions, that will take the WBA title off the table in a fight involving Bivol versus Canelo on May 7th. Let me know your thoughts about this situation and what you think the WBA should do. Should they just say, look, you know, it's a sad, bad situation going on in Ukraine, but we can't not involve ourselves in one of the biggest fights of 2022 involving the biggest name in the sport of boxing. We can't do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop at what we just did today, what we just announced today. That is, we're suspending all boxing events in the country of Russia, and we're going to leave it at that, and we're going to pretty much get behind our champion Dmitry Bivol in his upcoming title defense against Canelo-Alvarez. Do you think they're going to ultimately decide to do that, or you think they're going to stand 10 toes down, stand on their square, stand for principle over money, stand for substance over atrocities which are taking place in Ukraine, and say enough is enough? If you're a Russian fighter, you're going to have to pay for Putin's aggression, and we're going to pretty much shut you down as far as involvement in our rankings, whether you're a fighter that's trying to fight for a title or a fighter that holds a title, both world or regional. Let me know your thoughts. Follow me on JBsports 3303 Twitter. That's my Twitter handle. Like, share, and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.